There are two types of gamers in this planet when you mention Dark Souls 3's DLCs. One, the ones who remember Ashes of Ariandel and Ring City at their worst, and two, the ones who only remember the good things that they have to offer.
Yes, folks, I have recently blazed through these two mythical pieces of content. And let me tell you, unlike in Braveheart, this DLC did take my life and my freedom.
That they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom!
At the time they were released, I wasn't an avid FromSoft believer, so I don't know about the kind of reception they had, but I can imagine it was mostly good. Because no matter how many times FromSoftware screws up, many of its die-hard fans will just sweep everything under the rug, and mainly look at the good. And seeing two pieces of extra content instead of just one, as in Bloodborne and Dark Souls 1?
Oh shit, we had every reason to be ecstatic. Despite its many flaws, the base game was a great delivery. However,
the first DLC is so ass, it should be called Asses of Ariandel. Great to look at, yes, I am a sucker for snowy plateaus, one amazing boss fight and some cool weapons. And that's pretty much it. One thing that I admit Dark Souls 2 did well with its DLCs is, no matter how good or bad people thought they were at least consistent. All three offered pretty much the same amount of content. In this case, I would say no one would be as mental as to say Sandy's Tree Dome in winter is better than Ringed City. Let's start talking about the bosses. There are two. You barely have enough to make an entertaining tier list. Hey guys, random FromSoft tier list dude number 10,045 speaking. Let's rank some Ashes of Ariandel bosses. Freed and Ariandel obviously S tier. 3 faces, cutscenes, the synergy between them is well executed. Can't get enough of them. Good job, Japan bros. Grave Tender dude with big dog. I don't like it much. Very generic, one NPC and one invader. Insta dislike dude. Okay, that's it for today guys. Don't forget to smash that like button. Tier man out. You see? The ranking lasted almost as much as the intro and the outro together. I don't know what was the point of making things so black and white, like everything related to Freed is nice, the Titanite slab surprise.
Leave it!
Her track, her stealthy approach to combat, while Ariandel just goes. Despite being the complete opposites to each other, they work well together. I think this DLC gave us really decent 2v1 fights. Even the Grave Tender managed to get to the 1v1 concept alright, but that's pretty much it. It has no presentation, no apparent lore, since his sole reason of existence is to give us a ticket to the Undead Arena, where you can duel other players. Zero, fuck all, zip, nothing. Enemies in general provide zero entertainment value either. Except for the Corvian Knight, which can be spammy at times but still cool. The rest are as mindless as they can come. Giant flies, who cares about them? Living trees, who cares times 2? Pharaoh follower, nice reskin bro. Millwood Knight, annoying sponge. Corvian settlers generally don't fight back, and when they do, they are standing on top of roofs shooting projectiles, which is worse than nothing. Wolves, just big dogs that howl instead of barking. Like I said, it's very hard for me not to enjoy a snowy level. Even in Elden Ring's mountaintops of the giants, the snowy landscape blocked every thought I had of recycled enemies and bosses, boring layout, and so on. In this case, it is not that bad because it isn't that lengthy. If it weren't for Freed's difficulty and how the level design can be cryptic at times, I would teleport in and next thing I know I'm teleporting out to the Dreg Heap. Lastly, the weapons are not bad. The father of Helfen Steeple and Godslayer Greatsword, aka Onyx Blade, is nice. It taught these two everything they have going on for them, no need to elaborate. Valorheart has a nice stance and a unique moveset. We know these are well appreciated when most weapons of the same category share the same R1s and R2s. Shame it is given by such a forgettable boss. Freed's Scythe is very good looking, definitely a weapon created to abuse those weapon arts. I mean, look at that stance. The swag levels are out of the charts when your character just says, fuck it, I'll drop my guard menacingly and slowly walk towards you like I'm on some Virgil type of motivation. This DLC offered us 14 weapons, so something I don't understand is why were so many of them created for quality builds. 7 only scale with pure dexterity and strength. Being a DLC, I would risk creating more weapons that scale with intelligence and faith, since our characters should be high level at this point, like 90 or so. If not, we must have tons of respecs available to redistribute our points. No need to cut on intelligence and faith-based weapons just because those are less popular picks.
All in all, the reason why it's so underwhelming is because great content ahead. Ringed City must have been their main focus while developing their DLCs.
I still don't know the reason why they had to cut it into 2 pieces of mediocre and good content. It's beyond my understanding and Google's ability to find answers. It makes me even more upset to see that separately, instead of buying the Season Pass, if you acquired Ashes alone, it cost $15 on release, which is overpriced as hell for what it is. I have a bad costume of comparing RPG DLCs to Blood and Wine from The Witcher 3, which cost $20 on release, and it's insane how Ashes is just $5 cheaper than an almost brand new game in Blood and Wine. Also, Shadow of the Archery was $40 on release. How is Ashes of Ariandel almost half the price of Elden Ring 2? It's crazy. Moving on to Ringed City, the Juice Giver, the Content Bringer, the Cheek Slapper. Okay. That's enough. The Nipple Twist.
Fortunately, we ended the Dark Souls franchise on a good note. Ringed City is everything Ashes of Ariandel wanted to be. But is it everything we players wanted it to be?
Dreg Heap begs to differ. Not even in my wildest dreams I would think that a zone that requires platforming in a game that has no jump button would benefit from enemies that spam lethal projectiles, and on top of fucking that, add a poisonous swamp in the middle of a location with 2 angels, because let's not give players hopes of playing through the area normally. Of course not. Let's give them every possible reason to just run past everything. It's like they knew this zone was bad and added crushing difficulty, so in the process of sprinting through everything, we wouldn't realize this is terrible. Fortunately, this is just the appetizer for the real DLC. Getting to the Ringed City... Getting to the Ringed City DLC, the map layout is much better. At times, the legions of mobs coming at you feels overwhelming, especially at that point where you get to the residential area and there were like 3 headless fatties together, 3 tanky and hard to stagger enemies that deal a lot of damage. You really don't like us, do you, Fromsoftware? In fact, that whole zone corrupted by the Abyss is cursed. 5 minutes ago we were killing weak mobs, individual Rings Knight fights, 1v1 duels, and all of a sudden, there's a fucking giant that summoned those bowmen, these bastards, Rings Knights on top of that building, Midir AC 130 in the place, and the Dragon Slayer armor. Talk about difficulty spike. I enjoyed it though. I guess that's why they say these games are difficult, because they get me hot. Okay, let's get serious. The 20 weapons they added are awesome. Sometimes I itch to do a new playthrough just to get to use them in the base game and annihilate those poor bastards with the Frayed Blade, the Ringed Knight sword, Gale's sword. Everything is so broken, it's like they thought, hey, we're about to end this franchise forever. Why not throw balance out of the window and just make everything S tier? I mean, every weapon feels special and powerful. Be it because they look different, they play different with their weapon art, or simply because they are a giant fucking door in your hands. I love the troll potential of that shield. Enemies are also cool as a whole. Sure, you have bits of dullness like the Merkman and the Lothric Knight reskins. I didn't say the Angels because aesthetically they look cool as hell. And luckily they were patched a few days after the DLC release. Yes, they are patched. They didn't do that damage before. It was even worse. But others like the Harald's Legion, the Iron Dragon Slayer, and above all else the Ringed Knights were a nice addition. P.S. Next time you add an intimidating enemy like the Ringed Knights, Don't let them be treated like that. It removes their fear factor.
There is one thing I disliked about the map, and I won't say the entirety of Dreg Heap again. I wanted it to feel like Yarnum, an interconnected city, hence its name, City. Walking around the residential area, talking to locals.
But here comes Dark Souls 3 again with its misleading zone titles. Just like Profaned Capital, which wasn't a capital, but some hallways. Ringed City feels the same at times, but of course, on a bigger scale. In that aspect, I must say I have mixed opinions on the map design. Sure, it was a little linear, which isn't problematic per se unless you're Charnel Lane or Road of Sacrifices. I mean, not always big means better. Well, sometimes, okay. Wow, many times, sure, alright. Are we still talking about games? Map-wise, today's gaming developers value style over substance. Everything looks cool, but actually exploring the map feels like a chore or an errand rather than generating fun and curiosity. Games like Ghostwire Tokyo or Days Gone were nice, but they didn't benefit much from being open world. Elden Ring's DLC map also made me mad at times. I would have never discovered Hinterland if I hadn't watched a guide showing that I had to use this gesture acquired right there in front of this specific statue right here. Feels silly, and it's great Ring City didn't have that sort of tomfoolery. I'm making a mess out of my essay, sorry comrades, let's just leave it at I would have liked it to look more like a city, maybe akin to Ulasil, but that's it. That's the only complaint I have. The bosses were awesome in general. Here's what I think of them in order of worst to best. In a group project, there's always that bastard who won't lift a finger and get the same glory as the rest, but not this time, Half-Light Spear of the Church. Independently of how you put it, a fight where it's either a PvP duel or PvE against an NPC, and no matter which you get, there will be 2 Paint Guardians healing them and attacking you. Whoever's listening to you spit that nonsense should be a good person and tell you to get away from this. The fight sucks ass and there's not much I can say about it. Getting a real player is the most immersion-breaking thing that can happen because, as I criticized in my How's Dark Souls 3 in 2024 video, Infinite's rolling ruined PvP. Expecting to fight a decent boss and end up witnessing this. Just pathetic. Demon Prince was a damn good fight. I might risk it and say it was the last time Fromsoftware did a good 2v1 boss, because the only good thing about Headless and Guardian Ape is that the second comes in halfway through the fight, and Elden Ring's habit of either putting 2 bosses that don't synergize well together or simply leave one at the back doing nothing while you fight the other disgusts me. Demon Prince is alright because it's not both melee attacking you at once, but rather one does it and the other stays away throwing poison at you, unless you come too close. Reminds me of the gargoyles from Dark Souls 1. When the melee one is about to die, the ranged one assumes the role of melee attacker, while the weak one turns to ranged combat. Simply amazing. The best of all is that you don't need to have your camera pointed at the ranged demon because his poison attack has both a visual and an audio cue, which helps the player to multitask and makes the fight more entertaining. Since you don't rely only on what you see, but also on what you hear. The second phase is insanely well balanced. It's a spectacle, fun, and not too difficult if you realize he whiffs quite a lot if you stay beneath him. Extra points for giving us a glimpse of the original Firelink Shrine. Midir is also another spectacle. Just like Calamite, he has a great build-up to his fight. That is not the first time we see it. Ever since we arrived to Ringed City, he's been watching us, waiting for the best moment to strike, which is here. The fight is amazing and difficult. He had one of the biggest health pools ever seen up until that time. Eclipsed only by Yorn, Midir had 15k HP, and to put you into perspective, counting both faces from Nameless King and Soul of Cinder, Midir has like 5k more health than them. And the fact that you must always aim for the head if you want to get decent damage doesn't help us either. Always be on the move. Don't stay too long below him, or this will happen. Keep your camera focused on his body even though you're hitting his legs, otherwise he'll... basically be on top of everything. His attacks are erratic, but I would still say it's better to stay in front of him for two reasons. First, he's more predictable while you're there, and his moves are easier to dodge than when he breathes flame under him. And secondly, you'll be there sooner to smack him on the head whenever he finishes doing something. Lastly, his flamethrower into laser thrower Godzilla style is top 5 best moments in boss fights for me. Placido's X was cool and all, but there's nothing like the originals. Gale, the men who name-dropped the franchise and haven't been memed for it,
Handed over that thing, your dark soul.
Lucky for him, it was 2017. Had it been 2022, the internet would be filled with comments like, "I loved it when Gale dark souled all over the Ashen One, truly a remarkable moment." Obviously, he was going to make it to the first spot. The last two men alive, two undead nobodies, fighting each other in the middle of nowhere. Fromsoftware wanted us to understand that whoever won that fight, the world would be fucked still. Look at what happens when you defeat Gale and the story wraps up. Yes, absolutely nothing. Your reward is crippling depression, emptiness, and loneliness. Honestly, there is no better ending. Looking at the fight, Gale, what happened to you? You're not that friendly Santa Claus from 3's fight. You're a badass old man full of roids, aura, and 2 tons distributed between your balls and your broken sword. The proportions are classified. His track is my all-time favorite next to German's and Ludwig's. The way he jumps, shooting his Glock bow, doing a flip and landing on a sword strike screams Devil May Cry levels of badassery. The dynamic weather going from partially sunny to nighttime, lightning included, and the lore weight that this fight carries on its back, I don't think Fromsoftware will ever do such a thing, because to do so, first they must stop releasing only standalone titles. To summarize, the DLC for this game had its ups and downs. The majority of Ariandel made me consider selling my PS5 and deleting my PSN account. And Dreg Heap pushed me over the edge where I was about to give up all sorts of gaming activity.
Luckily, we had 4 bosses, the sweet conclusion to our beloved franchise, the lore behind of it all, and Ringed City to save the day, and to make me give up productivity and continue being the professional gamer that I am.
Cheers, comrades.